Thank you for joining me today. I did enjoy the music. That was really
What
a
music?
nice tone. Oh, you didn't have music?
I probably did. What was I playing?
It
I
was
know what I
like
was playing.
it was like like I don't know what you call that, like
Oh,
yoga. Was that yours?
this, yeah.
I liked it. Well, I was like, cool. I've never had someone start off with music, but it was very relaxing, so it got me
Oh,
so thank you for that.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Funny. So that's funny that was working because that's part of the internal, but I guess what coming out of my mixer board was muted for some reason. But
That's probably why, because that was coming through maybe.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I wanted to introduce you today. So I'm here with SatsScholar today. I want to get to know you. I want to hear about your focus on sovereignty and your cypherpunk ethos. And I want to talk a little bit about anything else you find interesting, like even a little bit about pyramids. I've heard that would be something you might want to get into, and then quantum physics and the connection to Bitcoin. So just any kind of interest that brought you to Bitcoin, or maybe just curiosities that kind of explain who you are, who you were before you discovered Bitcoin. So it's just kind of fun to sort of connect those dots. So I really like to get to know people that way.
Yeah.
So if you want to start off with maybe, I think this is kind of fun to do because it sort of lets people know a little bit more about you, but can you tell us something most people don't know about you?
Well, I'm much more handy than I let on. That's something that people don't know about me. There's pretty much nothing I can't take apart and fix, and I don't generally say that to people because you just become everybody's like handyman or everybody's tech support. So I just they say hey, do you know how this works? And nope. Like I just nope, not a clue. Oh, it's broken. What a shame. I just check out, but like in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, I know how that works, and I can fix it for you in probably 30 seconds. So that's something that people don't really know about me. Like I am a wealth of useless knowledge. But yeah, like mechanically, electronically, I've been messing with electronics and computers since I was a child. My first two computers were a Commodore VIC-20 and a Commodore 64. I still have my VIC-20 with its hard drive, its tape drive, its printer, everything. I actually want to do an experiment. I would like to try to get the VIC-20 hashing Bitcoin one day. I think that would be a lot of fun, and maybe make that into a little video. So yeah,
that'd be awesome. So what age were you when you got into that? Like how young?
Like 6.
Really?
Yeah. I started messing around with with Commodore at around 6 years old, learning BASIC, and then
or were you coding or something at that age, or what were you doing at age?
Yeah, just little. I mean, you had to with a Commodore, like you have to know some base. You have to know some basic to boot up a game or start using things like when you put a cartridge program, or like if you got a program from a magazine and you typed in the program manually and then you ran it. So you had to know a little bit, just to mess around with those types of machines back then. And then I graduated to my family's computer, which is just MS-DOS. And again, you kind of need to know a little bit, not a lot more with DOS, but
I don't even know those computer names. Like to me, I don't even know. The first computer I had was like one of those colorful Macs. That was
like an
my
iMac.
experience.
I love those.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite. I have quite the little Mac collection. I've got tons of hardware. I have hardware just up to my ears that I don't even know what to do with it. I actually just built a partial gaming rig for a friend's kid, just because like I have just so many parts, and he's like, hey, my kid wants to game. I was like, not a problem. Like, come over, pick what you want, let's build something, and I'll just give it to you.
I used to be a gamer, and I was actually interested in building one, but now I don't play very much anymore, and I just use a PlayStation, so it's just so much easier.
Yeah.
But I was interested in that. I'm like, maybe I'll build a computer. That'd be fun, So I was actually like looking into it, and I knew some people in real life. They were like, let me know if you ever want to do it, and I just never got started. But that was always interesting to me, with the lights and how colorful and all that stuff.
It's a great hobby. It's expensive, but you could do it on a budget. But it's a great hobby, and it's definitely a gateway drug. It's a lot of fun, but
yeah. So were your parents like encouraging you to get involved with computers, or were they techie themselves?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not even in the slightest bit. They they had a computer just because my father worked in banking and he needed the machine, but they not techie at all, not mechanically inclined at all. They did not want to mess with, I used to, take apart and, fix and rebuild old vacuum tube radios and amps and, figure out,
Were they telling you get off that computer stuff, go outside and play?
No, they were never like
No?
that. They were never they were pretty nonchalant, they were never like encouraging but never discouraging. They were kind of just,
Mhm.
floated in the middle of the road, and it's like, "Oh, he's doing that. Okay, that's fine. Oh, he's doing this now. Okay, that's fine." They never like overly supported but never overly discouraged either. So, they just kind of
That's
let me
good.
kind of do my own thing. I mean, kids of the 80s, latchkey kids, you come home from school, there's nobody around. You just did whatever you wanted. So, you know, let's take apart this
Yeah, I
TV.
know how that is.
Yeah. let's, let's see what this does. Oh, that hurts. Okay. Not doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
You just
know. We were
learn.
definitely growing up a lot faster than kids do today because we were just like left to,
Right.
yeah, make mistakes on our own and everything and just figure stuff out.
Yeah,
It's so
exactly.
funny.
Exactly. So, but I
Yeah,
mean,
things are different for sure.
oh,
Like I
yeah.
just remember coming home and I feel like with my kids, they're about the age that I was when I was just walking around the neighborhood, going to Blockbuster,
Mm
hitting movies, like just like
hmm.
walking like for a couple miles, walking all over the place, going to McDonald's or something, meeting up with friends. And my parents, they have no way to contact you.
No,
There's no phones,
no. Be home by
It's like,
dinner.
well, I guess I'll be home at some point,
Yep.
so it's just crazy.
Yep. That was it.
Um, yeah, it's just cool having a lot of people. I feel like in our community, I think a lot of people are similar age, so we can kind of relate with that.
Hmm.
I'm sure there's a lot of like young Bitcoiners, but I think that I don't know, between 30 and 40 or 50. I think it's because we are mature enough to understand about investing, but also investing the right way. But we're at a great time where we were the type of people who didn't know a thing about technology, but then well, you did, you were at age 6 playing with computers. But most people, we were just, we lived the life without phones, without
Hmm.
much internet, nothing. And then all of a sudden, we are we get to live in both places. We got to live with a life without it and with it, so there's not a lot of generations that kind of have that
Hmm.
experience like we do.
Yeah.
So it's just a really interesting time.
I think also speaking, that age group, we've seen a lot and we've been exposed to a lot, and
Mm,
that's allowing us. Like if I look at like my daughter, right? She's grown up with technology, so she's not going to see it as an innovation. At least in my opinion, she's not going to see it as an innovation. Just like I don't see a car as an innovation, but somebody from the 1920s or 30s, the car was an innovation. The car was going to change the world. To me, it's something that just goes and gets groceries, right? So to my daughter, technology is just something that she uses. It's not an innovation. It's just her daily life. But I think, we're seeing it for that innovation. And then you couple that, you know, I was in my early years of prime earning when the 2008 financial crisis happened. So I
mm,
mean, and that's going to line up with most people in their late 30s, early 40s, early 50s. You went through that when you're looking at buying a house. You're just got your maybe your third raise and you're really starting to rake it in, and then boom, and you're like, whoa. So you couple that with I'm not seeing, this isn't, I'm seeing this as an innovation and there's a crisis, we're going to gravitate towards something that's going to, in our minds, fix that crisis. And so
mm,
I'm not surprised that that cohort is what's kind of gravitating, towards Bitcoin and just towards finance in general. I mean, you think about the lack of financial education in the United States and in
mhm,
the world too, in general, really in the Western world. Uh, so now I never learned how to balance checkbook in high school, and we should have. And now we're looking, we're in peak earnings or coming to the tail end of our peak earnings, and and now here's this dearth of information of finance. It's like, yeah, we're going to latch onto that because now, like, oh my god, this is something that I've never learned, and I was wrong. This is
mhm,
right. Bitcoin is right. Austrian economics is right. And when I listen to other people who say it's right and I watch their net worth go up, I watch their way of life get better, it's kind of a no-brainer. And then you start peeling back all the different layers of the onion and you're like, wow, okay, not only is this right, this is the only answer. And that's just, so yeah, that's just how I think we're in a very unique position. I mean, British Hodl likes to say that this is a once in a species opportunity, and he's probably correct there. Just like, again, going back to the cars, like that was a once in a species opportunity. Think Henry Ford, think the Dodge brothers, like
Right.
that was a one. You're not going to, you're not really, I mean, maybe, I guess, minus Elon with what he's doing with Tesla, but again, he's innovating something that's there. So these once in the species opportunities of innovation, if you don't grab onto it, it's gonna go right past you. And you can try to catch up, and you can look at all the failed car companies, DeLorean, Etzel, the list goes on and on and on. Those are basically like the altcoins. They're the failed, because the real innovation, it already happened, it worked, and you can't innovate more. That's it. And what did it take for Elon to come out? It's 100 years. That's a long time, right? That's a long time for there to be significant innovation within the space. And really, what's different? Just the mode of, just the method of powering the propulsion. Nothing else really changed. I mean, really,
Yeah.
like nothing else. I mean, you can even really get down to some real brass tacks and be like, the driverless car, is that even different from a horse pulling a wagon? Not really. The horse is the AI, is the computer. It just goes. It knows where to go. It's going to avoid obstacles. It'll take you down the path. It's kind of the same thing. Well, the real difference is that the machine now is powered by something that's completely different than it was powered before, which allows it to do things that it couldn't do before. So, you're putting innovation on top of innovation. It's the old adage.
I think when it comes to seeing all these things develop, and for us to actually understand, again, coming from a life where we grew up seeing new technologies emerge, it's harder for some older people because they just think they might fight new technologies more, or think who needs that, or why,
Mm-hmm.
they just don't want to see the changes. I guess they're not like all up for change. And I think the younger people, again, like you said, they grow up seeing all technology, so to them they're just riding these waves. They're
Right.
just thinking, oh yeah, it's just part of life. This is how my whole life has been, new technologies all the time. But for us, it's like we're used to seeing these emergences happen and these new things develop, and we're amazed by the development, and we appreciate it. So I think that's why we end up, again, at the time of crisis, we were looking for answers. We were old enough to understand what was going on, but also because we can notice new technologies, because that's the kind of world we grew up in, where things were developing and we were paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty amazing.
It is. It's and it's fascinating to think, like, going back, what other things were the big innovations of the time. And you're thinking, the steam engine was one,
Hmm.
electricity was another, plumbing, roads with the you want to talk about an innovation, roads. I mean, that's what created Rome, and what allowed Rome to be what it was. It's roads, which, like, something we don't think about that today. A road, like, it's just what I drive on. I go to the gym. The road is just something that I use. But there was a time where roads were not what they were today. There was a time where roads were just this path that people followed in the woods or through fields. And then Rome came along. We're like, no, 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 no. We're gonna pave these. We're gonna make them straight. We're gonna figure out unified widths and lengths, and we're gonna codify that into general rules that's going to be followed. We're gonna have organized methods of construction. You're going to follow those organized methods no matter where you go in the empire, so that the roads remain uniform and uniform throughout. We take that for granted now, that we just know how to make roads. But
Hmm.
Rome did that, and they lasted 2,000 years, arguably. If you want to count the Eastern Roman Empire. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm one of those people that I look around when I see highways and the intricacies of like these networks, like
Mm-hmm.
the way that they're built, it is fascinating to me, because I think if I try to build something, I measure wrong one time and the thing is lopsided, and I'm like, how do they build these things? Like, it's crazy to think that such giant things that are interconnected
Yeah.
are built, and they're built so smoothly and so nicely. And I just don't know how on a large scale that's even done. But yeah, a lot of people take it for granted. You just think it's there, it's part of the world. And but there's so much work and design that goes into these things. And it's just so many things you look at around the world can remind you, of Bitcoin. And that's what I kind of want to ask you about your name, Sats Scholar. Do you feel like your name represents the like philosophical
Hmm.
side of Bitcoin, or do you think it's more scholarly, like you're looking at just um, physics, or is it more spiritual, or like what kind of idea does that name mean to you?
That's a good question. That's a real good question. I just kind of I picked it because I'm a bit of an autodidact, and I have some formal schooling as well, but not a lot. Not enough, I'll say that. And I've always taught people something. I've been
Hmm.
a teacher in many different fields, and so I thought, like, maybe I can teach a little about this, and that's why I picked that. But I think it's also part of it's an aspect of myself, right? I want to be the scholar. I want to be somebody who's learning and spreading. So, and then tying that to Bitcoin, yeah, I think it's all a combination of that. I don't think it's just one thing. It's everything that you mentioned. It's the philosophy, it's the technology, it's the learning, it's the teaching, it's all of it. And
Hmm.
I thought, why not try, just at least try to embody that.
Right. I love that. And I love your the picture. It's the sat. That's the for people that don't know, the penny version of Bitcoin is what
Yeah.
I call it. One thing that I think that do you call it, is it something that you say about leveling up? Like how people, when they understand being sovereign and being free and understanding Bitcoin, I always would say that like real life XP. Like I feel like
Hmm.
you're actually reaching the next level. You're getting better at life. Like it's almost like once you understand this thing, it does remind me of a video game where you're just kind of gaining experience and getting ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I mean, it's, each level is the level of understanding. It's just like a video game. I mean, like, you know, life is a simulation, and this is part of that simulation. And if you believe that, and uh each part is that level, and you have levels within everything. Bitcoin is just another level in that game, and there's levels within it, and you got to level up. You got to approach each one, then you learn it, and then master it, move on to the next level. And it's okay to fail, right? Like, it's okay to fail, it's okay to mess up and restart. You're respawning, basically, right? You get to the end of the
Yes.
level, you hit the boss, you die, respawn, do it again, and that's fine, because
Hmm.
the more times you do it, the better you're going to get.
Yeah, and you get more experience,
Hmm.
and you get better at it. And one thing that's funny is looking at the sat that you have there for your profile picture. It looks like it's like levels too. It's like you enter
Yeah.
Bitcoin, then you have three levels, then you have like enlightenment. Like at the
Yeah.
top, it's almost like the symbol of the sat looks like that,
Yeah.
leveling up.
That's cool.
That's funny.
Yeah, it is. Each one, it's when I think when they were trying to design the symbol, they actually thought of that. That it's each
Really?
one of, yeah, each one of those lines is a stack, and you just keep stacking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then if you tilt it, you can actually draw. It's hard to visualize with the black and white, but if you tilt it, you can actually draw the Bitcoin B, and it fits right into
Oh,
this. And then you draw the other line. Yeah, there's a whole document out there about the community when they came up with this symbol and how they made it. And I love the symbol. I think it's fantastic. I think it's esoteric. I think it's beautiful. It's simple. It's plain. I like the black and white. It reminds me of the yin and yang. I love the
mhm.
fact that it fits into the Bitcoin symbol. You're getting like the duality right there. To me, it's the perfect symbol. It's also a little bit, like ghostly, and a little bit, not well known. So everybody knows the Bitcoin B, but not everyone knows the sat symbol. So it's a little
Mhm.
fun. It's fun to wear that on shirts and stuff like that, and nobody knows what it is. Unless you're pretty into Bitcoin, nobody knows what it is. It just looks cool, and it's like, oh, that's kind of a cool symbol. People think it's an equals. That's a
Yeah.
funny equal sign I've heard. I was like, yeah, isn't it?
It looks like a road, right?
Yeah, it does. It does look a little bit like a road, Yeah, for sure. And or like maybe a man on each end trying to cross the road, and yeah, it does. There's a
Oh
lot of
wow, there's
interpretation. It's a good symbol. I don't know off the top of my head who made it, but it's beautiful, and there's a lot of symbology within it, and I just think it
yeah.
hits pretty hard.
I never like really looked at it before, but it's like now that I'm just like it's on your your profile picture. I mean, I've looked at it, I know what it looks like, but I never thought about what it means or that it fits into the Bitcoin B. I'd love to see that. That's really fascinating. So I like that you know that about it too, for it being your profile picture. That's really cool.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, there's so much like symbology, I guess. Like people really thought about it when they created it. You know, it wasn't just like, oh, let's just make us, three lines. There's something behind it. So
Yeah.
that's amazing to hear.
Yeah.
When you talk about this being a simulation, I always find that fascinating when people say that, because there's so many reasons why you could think that life is a simulation.
Mhm.
And but then how do you connect that to any ideas you have about the pyramids and all that?
Well,
Is that not connected,
not
or do you feel like it
I mean, it
connects?
could be. Not really, I would say. It could be. I mean, you can get real crazy with it and be like, well, the pyramids were created as the simulation was created. Like, and that's like, that indicates that, we're not just this like running simulation running in a machine or something like that, but that there's an active, participant, right? Somebody that like coded it, for lack of a better
Hmm.
term. And they were like, let's put the pyramids in there and see what these guys do about this. Cause, and that's not impossible. Like if you
Hmm.
created the supercomputer and you wanted to, model a civilization and you wanted to see what that civilization would do, you would put artifacts in that simulation and see how they interact with those artifacts. And it's possible that those artifacts are artifacts from your world that you don't know and you can't figure out. So you're going to say, okay, well, we're going to simulate this and we're going to put the artifacts that we don't understand in, and we're going to see if they can figure out these artifacts, which will tell us the answer. So, I mean, like you can tie things back into simulation theory. I would say that, that they're not, I would think that if this is a simulation, that the simulation is, kind of like non-cognitive, if that makes sense. It's not one that's being actively created and actively monitored. It's just something that's existing, like almost like as a background process, so to speak.
Hmm.
And the odds that we're in a simulation for real are pretty low. We're probably
Hmm.
not. This probably is base layer, reality. But it might not be. It might not be. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I've had this conversation with people, and they're like, "Oh my god, nothing matters." And no, it doesn't. That's not. No, it doesn't matter if we're in a simulation. Uh, it,
You
it
know,
it doesn't change anything.
I feel like I could watch any movie or any show. Some things could actually make sense, like how you said it doesn't really matter.
Mm.
And this might be a funny comparison, but I always like that movie Free Guy.
Uh,
I don't know if you've
I
seen
have
it.
not seen that. No.
Okay, it's a movie where it's like this video game character. He's an NPC, but he starts to come alive. So it's like an AI. He becomes, real, right? But
Right.
then he starts. Somebody that's entering the video game tells him, "You're not real. You're just an NPC, but you're having these feelings and you're doing this." And he goes and tells his friend that's also an NPC. He tells him, "What if none of this is real? What if this is fake? Like just like how we could think, like, is it a simulation? Is it
Hmm.
real?" But his friend says, "So, just hypothetically, you're saying this isn't real." He goes, "But the interaction I'm having with you right now, being there for a friend, listening to his problem, his worry, just consoling him," he goes, "That's real."
Yeah.
So he's like, whether or not you think that, this world is fake, it's like the interactions we're having are not fake. These
Absolutely.
emotions are not fake, so it's like whatever it actually is, yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's like the connections and the interactions are real. So yeah,
Absolutely.
it's just so, and I thought that was so cool. I know it's just a movie,
You
but I thought that was super cute, and it makes a lot of sense because it's deeper than just
right.
a movie about a video game. So I really like that.
I would say that hits on a lot of truths, actually. I mean, I had the conversation once, almost an argument with somebody a long time ago. We were talking about video games, and they mentioned, like, hey, what you're doing in there doesn't matter because it's not real. And I was like, well, is it though? Like, there is a server out there somewhere with code that somebody wrote. That code is held, on that machine. There's electrons that represent that code. There's electrons that represent my character. When I do
Mhm.
something here, that character moves. Like, I would say that, that is real.
even though it's not real life here, it's like the things that you do in the game, whether it's alone or with other people. When you spend time in a game building some kind of world, but when you're also connecting with other people, even if it's your own friends or
Yeah.
people that you meet online, you're actually sharing interactions with them,
Yeah.
sharing laughs, sharing their life, their lives with you. It's like you learn about people. So you are connecting in this virtual place,
Absolutely.
and it doesn't have to mean that it's actually just a fake place, because your
Absolutely.
interactions with what you're doing in there with other people are real, and it's not just about the game. So it's pretty cool that you're saying that. So I like that a lot.
It's a layer of abstraction when you get down to it. And this is the same problem that people have with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's not real. Just because it exists in like a type of like liminal space, so to speak, doesn't make it not real. The electrons are real. The representation of the work is real. The code is real. The machines are real. The power plants powering them is real. The waterfall powering the turbine is real.
It's more real that Bitcoin has the proof of work and the machines that are supporting the network behind it than your credit card that you spend with money that is just debt based, that is created. They just add zeros to a system. And it's like there's no work behind it. There's nothing behind it. It's just literally like numbers in a computer too. And when people don't even understand how their credit or debit card works and all the stuff that goes on in the background, that's not real either. You're just holding the credit card.
Right.
But same thing with you holding, a Bitcoin wallet or holding your phone that transacts Bitcoin. It's the same exact thing as
Absolutely.
your Venmo.
Absolutely.
So it's just hilarious when people think, well, you can't hold it. Well, you're not holding most people get direct deposit. They're not doing, any sort of peer to peer where cash is actually that way. And now we have a better version of cash. So it's just,
I would take it even
crazy.
one step further and say that there's the reality of Bitcoin is so much further than the fiat system, because it has limits, right? Like there's limits. There's only so much power that's going into the network right now, and that power is a direct correlation to the hash rate, which is a direct correlation to the what is it called? Oh my god, the adjustment.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a direct correlation to that. The amount of sats and coins in the network, that's hard limited. Can't change that. It's stuck. It's forever. Meanwhile, in the fiat system, on your credit card, and you call them, you got a good credit score. Guess what? They increase your limit. That created out of nowhere. They just push a button. Let's take Staci's credit limit from 10,000 to 20,000. You did nothing to earn that.
Yeah. Wall Street, just like how we lived through the great financial crisis, it's like you have companies, corporations, politicians that whenever they just keep spending money because they have literally an unlimited credit card. And whenever they run out of money, they just create more of it and enrich themselves by, paying and helping and supporting people who need more cash flow. So it's like, it's all based on credit. It's not even, none of it is based on anything.
No.
It's just, whoever's closest to that money printer benefits.
Yeah, the Cantillon effect. I saw that directly at the time, right in the middle of the Great Financial Crisis. I was working in aviation, and I saw what happened when some of the people with the small FBOs with maybe 3 or 4 helicopters, who didn't have access to deep lines of credit, they folded, they disappeared. But the guy across the field with 13 Embraers, not a problem for him. He leveraged a couple things, made some moves, did that, the other thing, and next thing you know, he had a couple more planes. They were Gulfstreams this time. It's like, oh, okay, well, I guess he's doing something right. So that was, I watched it firsthand, of the shenanigans that were happening because it's not real. You want to talk about what's not real? That's not real. Somebody that is not doing anything and then can turn around and purchase, a couple Gulfstreams, like they did nothing. He didn't build them. He didn't provide work for them. He just bought them, and then you leverage those. You wind up selling them down the line to increase your bottom line because you bought them at 0%. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
And people closer to the central bank, the banks themselves, they get these lower interest rate loans
Hmm.
that they can refinance their debt with, where everybody else gets the higher interest loans. And, other countries don't get access to the money printer. So
Nope.
whenever more debt is created, they get higher interest even than that. And it creates more problems for
Yeah,
their country because they're trying to get ahead by taking out another loan, but at a high interest rate that they can't pay back. So it's everyone's that's closer to that creation of this fiat currency in this country is benefiting. I'd love that more people are understanding this. It's just a great time to be living in and witnessing. It's very
it
exciting.
is.
The funny thing is when people aren't understanding Bitcoin, when they don't understand it or they're not in it, it's a scary time for everybody else. But for us, we're like, great,
Yeah.
this, and it's not just because Bitcoin is overthrowing everything. It's just giving the world some kind of definitive, some kind of actual, even though it's not tangible, right? But it's actually work, it's actually based on something. It's actually transforming and underlying the system instead of it just being a fake, whatever it's been all this time. So we're just excited to see how this is shaping our world in
Oh
the
yeah.
future. And we're not worried about it. It's just fun. It's kind of fun to watch.
You know, societies need a foundation, right? Like societies need a foundation to base their worth on. They need a foundation to base their beliefs on. Without these foundations, you have no society. I speak to people all the time who feel like the Western world doesn't have culture. I disagree. I think it does, but the reason they're saying that is because our foundations are damaged. We need to rebuild those foundations. That's one of the things that Bitcoin, I hope it will do. I mean,
Hmm.
talk about the pyramids again. Like, think about the foundation that set for the ancient Egyptians. I There's no better symbol of the authority of their civilization, their culture, than these giant gleaming white pyramids that could be seen for miles. I mean, what a sight that must have been for travelers coming into Giza and just like, oh wow, look at that. There's nothing like that anywhere else. You're just surrounded by nothing, and then there's this giant white obelisk in the middle of nowhere, potentially, if legends are correct, capped with a gold capstone that just blinds you. You can't even look at it when it's under the noon sun. Having that type of strong foundation and singular cohesive thing is a necessary object. It's a necessary thing for society. Without it, you're lost. You have no object orientation, right? You have nothing. You're just going to be going left and right and forward and everywhere because you don't know where you can go. You don't know what you can do. You're just going to try everything, and that's what leads to these problems. That's what, like, 1971, when they took us off the gold standard. Why? Because there was no foundational system. They can do that. When there's foundational systems, you can't. It's part of like a hard block, and that's something that we need to rebuild as a society. And I think and I hope that Bitcoin is, either that or the first step towards that.
Yeah, I think 100%. Like it's like our foundations here, it feels like it's so much more based on fear and propaganda and,
Hmm.
thinking that we're better than the rest of the world here in America. And,
Yeah,
I get that every country, they want to be the best, but the world should be about people working together for the benefit of all people, not for being a bully. We
absolutely.
can't be a bully for the rest of the world. We need to change our outlook on that and not think of
Yeah,
when you look around at people that aren't understanding the shift that's happening here, they're just too busy fighting and they're too busy being distracted by all of the propaganda that's being pushed and
yeah,
the bureaucracy that's infiltrated our system. So it's nice to see that. I think that is changing
yeah.
because of a lot of it. I feel like it's I don't know, it's because of Bitcoin in my mind, a lot of things because people realize that when the world is based on fiat and money that governments control, um and this new thing is coming along that they have to embrace, like the world has to embrace.
Hmm.
It changes the way that they view wars and all different other things that are going on and what's valuable. So I think it's just it does reshape so many things, and that's why we think Bitcoin fixes everything.
For
But
sure.
it is an exciting time. It's crazy to see what's happening with the stock market and how
Don't say it.
I want to discuss this too if you're up for it
Oh yeah, let's
a
go.
little bit. So I just feel like the downturn in the stock market's a very interesting thing that's happening because we're talking about this decoupling that's happening
Ah,
with
you said it.
Bitcoin. The word, I
The
said the
word.
word, I said decoupling. Yeah. So I've been hearing that a lot more, and we're always kind of like cynical about it. We're like, yeah, we know it'll happen,
Yeah.
but we're like, is it now? Is it now? Is it really going to happen now? But we know it'll happen eventually. But we're just like, are people getting ahead of themselves? That it's actually like, ooh, it's really finally showing that it's taking a turn away from the traditional stock market and everything. But I want you to like tell me what your thoughts on that. But I also think it's funny how people freak out about the tariffs that have been going on and
Yeah.
how but I don't know if this is true and if you've heard about this, but I had a friend show me videos from Chinese factories, I guess, have been trending, and they're
Hmm.
showing all the designer goods that, you know, they say made in Italy, made in
Yes.
France, whatever. And they're actually like, no, actually, they are all actually made here and they're very cheap
Oh
to
yeah.
make. And you guys could buy them direct from us for very little money. So it just kind of like is exposing. They're saying, well, guess what? You could buy direct from us and
Yeah.
skip the middleman and buy it for dirt cheap. And people are even more waking up to the truth that you're paying $38,000 we saw for a Hermes bag or
Hmm.
something when you can get it for like nothing. You know,
Luxury. Yeah. Luxury is a
and
lie.
right. It's like, look how much it just exposes how much they've been, uh, I don't want to use the word like raping you, but you know, they don't care. They just want to make as much
Ah,
profit. And if people pay for it, they will do whatever they can to get as for the name, for the label.
absolutely.
But when you realize that it's actually made in China and they just pretend slap a label saying it's made in France,
Yeah.
you know, people think, "Oh, I got this bag, it's made in France." But I think it's hilarious what's happening.
It
So I
is.
think that's I don't know if I think that's true. So I just didn't know if you heard about that as well.
No, I mean, I've seen the videos and stuff like that. I'm sure it's true because I mean, I've known for a while a lot. I don't know about all, but I know a lot
Mhm.
of luxury items. Or they're just made. Of course, they're made in China. Like, of course they are. Do you really think that, Coach can pump out hundreds of thousands of bags from Italy? No. No,
Right.
absolutely not. They're going to get 90, 95, maybe even 99% of the work done in China. Then China's going to ship those unfinished products to Italy, and then Coach
And
is
they'll
going to,
slap a
yeah,
tag on there,
and then
right?
they can say legally it's made in Italy. It's a joke. It's a lie. It's a scam, and it's all like that. So save your
Right.
money. Don't buy it. Find something that's functional.
Right.
It's just the way it is. Buy direct from source. But um, I that's all part of. I mean, I know you're also a fan of Jeff Booth, since like he says the natural state of the free market is deflation. He is correct. The
Yeah.
bags shouldn't cost that to make. They should cost pennies in today's world, and they do, right? And people are just starting to finally wake up to that. And the old adage, everything goes to zero against Bitcoin. That's what the decoupling is. At a certain point, the stocks are they're still priced in dollars, right? But Bitcoin, again, Jeff Booth is repricing the world. So what's going to happen? They're going to go down. It's impossible. Now, why is MicroStrategy going up? Because he's being priced in Bitcoin. He's
Mm.
pushing his stuff into the new unit of count. And as things move into the new unit of count, they're going to be based in that unit of account. And so now their value based in the dollar value will rise because it's going up with Bitcoin. And, that only happens because of the dollars, right? And that's why I have a big thread that I'm writing on this that's going to come out. Like, I firmly believe that Bitcoin will lead us, or at least start the path toward post scarcity. 100%. It's inevitable because everything has to right. Everything has to trend towards zero, right? And they do, and we notice this. You pick up your phone, right? If it's an iPhone, I don't know, 15, 16, right? Price out that iPhone in the exact same specs. There it is. So there it is. Price that
Don't
out.
borrow from the future, buy the future,
That's
it
it.
says there.
That's it. If you were to go back in time to even say 2005, they could build that phone, right? They could. They absolutely could, but it would cost you 50 grand, right? Maybe even more. Okay. Now it's what, $1,500? So it's going down in price. And the next iteration in 5 years will be even more advanced and further and further and further down the line, until the point where, they're outrageously advanced. They're 3D printed as a single solid unit, and you use it you throw it away if it breaks. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it's efficiency is in the market. This is also the problem with ASIC resistant coins. They don't leverage. I'm actually writing a thesis on that. They don't leverage efficiency. In a world that's moving towards post scarcity, efficiency is everything, right? You want to do more with less, and Bitcoin forces you to do that because it's hard cap. So it's going to force stock prices to decouple. It's going to force electronics to go down in price. It's going to force innovation in the free market. It's going to force these things because you have no choice, because now you must do more with less or you will be left behind.
And also when he discusses the amount of production and labor that's going to be increasing drastically
Yeah.
because of AI and robotics and
Yeah.
all that stuff, that when you talk about supply and demand, there's going to be so much more supply than the demand, so the prices therefore go down when you have so much supply of something. So that just is a deflationary force right there. This is just hilarious because when you have this trade war going on and the rest of the world, like, people freak out about it. They're like, oh no, everything's getting destroyed. I'm like, no, actually, maybe China's just sick of it because they're like, guess what? We've been making all this stuff for the whole world for all this time. And the people that buy it from us go and jack up the price by thousands of percent or
Yeah.
whatever so they're like, well, we'll just tell the truth then. You want to mess with us and you want to say like we're the enemies of the world when you guys have been taking product from here and selling it for, astronomical amounts that are ridiculous. It's like now you're just exposing the truth, and not only combined with AI and robotics that are deflationary forces, the free market is replacing it, because when you start this trade war that is terrifying to some people,
Mm-hmm.
you actually get to now have a country like China say, well, we'll just tell you guys all what's really going on then. So it's super amusing and it's really fun to watch. I don't know. I think is that crazy for me to think that, but
No.
I think it's hilarious.
No,
I
it's not.
think
It's not. It's not crazy at all. I
it's
mean, I think
fun.
most Bitcoiners are like that because, Bitcoin is truth and
Hmm.
information, and the information age we live in is the age of truth. And,
Hmm.
you can only suppress the truth for so long, especially when it's
Hmm.
things like this, when it's the truth of economics. You can't suppress it forever. It's going to come out. And it's going to show the world what's really happening and what your dollar is really worth. And when you realize that not only is the dollar worthless, but the goods that you're buying are also worthless, it completely changes your entire mind frame. And then the abundance that's going to come through automation and AI is, nobody's ready for that. I mean, I like to think about Star Trek a lot because they live in a post scarcity society, and what did it for them was the replicators, right? Because now whatever you want, right? You have a magic box in the wall that just gives you whatever you want. If it's big enough, it'll even give you a car. So, like, what's the worth of a Ferrari when everybody has a Ferrari? Nothing. And when everybody's a trillionaire, everybody's poor. That makes everything free. Like, these are the steps that we get to that. You're hungry. You go to the box in the wall. It makes you the best burger you've ever had in your life. You want the brand new PlayStation? It just creates it out of thin air. And we're getting there with 3D printers. Like we're getting there.
Hmm.
We're getting there. We're not far away. The laws of physics say it's not impossible to have replicators. It just takes a lot of energy. We gotta master that. Of course, fusion is always 5 years away, but that's a whole nother conversation. But it's coming.
Yeah.
Like the automation is coming. The AI is coming. The advances are going to be unlike anything that we could ever comprehend in our entire lives, and most jobs are going to be destroyed.
Super fun.
Oh, it's going to be incredible. Oh, it's going to
Mhm.
be like, oh, I can't wait. I absolutely can't. I hope I live long enough to see the singularity. 10,000 years of advancement within 10 months. God, bring it on, please. That's
Yeah.
perfect.
Well, that's why I think that we're the type, I think it's going to happen sooner than later, because even Elon Musk had posted the singularity is like here. He didn't say it's coming soon, it's 10 years away, it's anything. He said something recently where it's like we're here.
Yeah.
It's happened. And when you think about how far we've come with AI in the last 4 years, it's pretty wild. But I think that that's why it's kind of fascinating that our generation that's here, that's ushering in Bitcoin, that understands, we're mature enough to understand it. We're mature enough to share it. We've been through these hardships. We've seen the world change so much, and we can see technologies coming. I think that we're the right generation to see this unfold as well, because we're not fighting it. You know what I mean? Just like how older generations would be terrified of anything new. They don't want to lose control. But here we know that technology changes regardless. And I have a feeling that once people realize how powerful AI is, they're not going to want to use the ones that are controlled by Google. They're going to want to use the one that's plugged into Bitcoin. I don't know how that would work. I'm not a technologist, but my vision or my idea is that somehow or another, it doesn't scare me because of Bitcoin. Like
Yeah.
AI is something that I feel like will help and transform our world for the better, especially with that around.
Yeah, I would say I would agree with you 100%. Bitcoin protects you from the technocrats because, I mean, imagine this technology coming out without Bitcoin, without a deflationary pressure, right? I, you're talking AI would remain centralized. You're talking your phone would not really go down in price that much because the inflation would outpace it. You're talking, oh yeah, you want that replicator in your wall? Yeah, that's 50 grand for the base model. Like,
Hmm.
good luck. Good luck.
Yeah. It reminds me of like just dystopian. Like I've seen like this show Cyberpunk. It's like a dystopian future where
Yeah.
it's like everything is technology, AI, everyone's integrated with AI. It's just a world that you could envision if it wasn't for Bitcoin,
Oh yeah.
because it's a very rich and poor. It's like, but everybody has technology, like everyone can have it because it's
Yes.
everywhere, but it's integrated in you. But it's also that the most um it's created the most giant wealth gap
Oh
in the
yeah.
world. So it's like that's the dystopia that you would see.
I mean,
Tons of technology everywhere. And that's what I imagine the future would have been like. But now we can have this technology based future with something that isn't creating a bigger and bigger wealth gap, where
mhm.
it's actually even leveling things out for the world. So it's pretty hopeful, so that's why we smile when we see these things happening.
Yeah, I don't think that future is actually impossible with Bitcoin, which is something that saddens me a bit. There is definitely the chance that Bitcoiners wind up living in a form of parallel economy, where
Hmm.
if it doesn't, it could be decentralized enough, and it could be adopted enough, and it could be transacted enough where it continues to thrive and grow, but doesn't become a worldwide currency. And if that happens, the Bitcoiners will live in a parallel economy, and most people will live in a fiat economy, and most will be poor. And Bitcoiners will become outrageously rich, and we will live completely different lives, just like billionaires today live completely different lives.
Hmm.
That's not out of the question, and that's why we have to teach. We have to get the word out. We have to show people that, like, this is a currency, this is an asset, this is property, right? It's everything. It's a triple point thing, and it's all those things, because if we don't get that out and we are stuck in a parallel economy, sure, yeah, that's great for us, but that's going to suck for the world, and
Yeah.
many people will
Well,
be impoverished.
over time, the supply will continue to kind of filter into the market, even as the total supply is dwindling. People will still have freedom and live off of it, so it could trickle back in slowly from some of these people that are becoming massively
Yeah,
wealthy over time.
that's the whole. I've never agreed with this, and in that space the other night with Gary, I'm glad he said it, because it needs to be said more. There's not going to be a supply shock. At least I don't
Mhm.
think so. I can't see that happening. There's always a buyer for every seller. Like, period.
Right.
The exchanges will never run out of coins, because you can
Mhm.
have even just 100 coins collateralize all of Coinbase, right? Because it's fractionalized and the price of the
Yeah.
Sats goes up. So you're never going to see that insane. There's no coins, there's nothing.
Yeah.
Price is going to
Well,
explode
even
now.
when you think that's because with one Bitcoin being broken up to all these decimal places,
Yeah,
because it takes what 100,000 sats per Bitcoin.
100
So
million,
when you multiply 100, how much is it?
100 million.
100 million.
Yeah,
What am I saying? 100
100,000.
million sats per
Yeah,
Bitcoin.
yeah.
Crazy.
It's a ton. It's
Crazy.
huge.
That was
It's huge.
that was stupid.
That's okay.
That was
No, not a
stupid.
problem.
I knew that. I knew that. But what I'm saying is, okay, 100 million sats per Bitcoin is multiplied by 21 million Bitcoins. So every sat multiplied by the total amount of Bitcoins is like in the quadrillions or
Yeah,
something like that, I
21
think.
quadrillion.
21 quadrillion.
Yeah.
So it's like when people think like, oh, it's so finite, whatever, but it's because each sat will cost more and more and more.
Yes.
So it's unfathomable, the exponential growth that again Jeff Booth discusses and has opened our eyes to.
Yep.
Not only the deflationary economy that's coming, and the inflationary force of a new technology is exponential force.
Yeah.
The way it's growing is something you can't even begin to understand. Like, we think we know what we're talking about,
No,
but
right.
we're
Yeah.
like it's trying to understand like a 4D world, or trying to understand, like I understand physics and different, like, but they say you can't even comprehend 4D or more. Like, a human mind can't
No,
even.
if a 4D, if a being from another dimension like that were to come through your space, it would be like a line moving through your field of vision, because it doesn't even exist within our our R3. It doesn't even
Yeah.
exist. So it's just going to be transitioning through that, and you wouldn't even notice it. Just like how we can't comprehend a 2D world. You think you
Yeah.
can. You're looking at a cartoon, but like a cartoon is a 2D representation of a 3D world. Like an actual two-dimensional universe is something fundamentally, there's no ground. Like, think about it. No, you can't dig. You can't dig.
Hmm.
There's nothing there. And if you are
Well,
digging,
even
there's nothing left and right. It's weird.
I don't know who I heard talking about this, but I thought it was really interesting. I don't know who was saying it. Ugh, it's annoying me now that I can't give them credit for, you know, like saying this. But I heard, I think, a podcast where they were talking about ants,
Mm-hmm.
and how when you see ants walking around, they don't even, their perception of reality, it's not even 3D. It's like, to them, it's like 2D, because they don't look up and see a big foot coming their way and about to squash their
No.
entire family. They're just focused on what they're doing. They're too busy here. And we're humongous. You think they would notice us.
Yeah, no, we're like
But they
different
don't.
dimensional
They're just,
beings to them.
yeah, they don't like scatter and like run away when they see someone walking.
No,
They're oblivious to the fact that there's a giant human about to crush them.
right. And we would
So
be
we're not even in their perception.
no,
It's crazy.
no, and we would be oblivious, like to a fourth dimensional being. Like we wouldn't even comprehend a being that can exist, and move through time like we move through space. We can't comprehend that. Like, you're bypassing entropy. Like, what? I don't understand that. How are you going to a place that previously existed? How are you doing
Mhm.
that? There are some theories that talk about that, like, all points in time exist simultaneously. So the being can,
Mhm.
transition from point A to point B, just like how we move from point A to point B on a three-dimensional plane. They go from point A to point B on a time plane, a fourth-dimensional plane. There are four, and they can traverse that. And it's possible. I mean, it's very
Mhm.
possible.
Yeah, like everything could exist right here. Like hundreds of layers of the same, like alternate realities could be in the same exact spot. We just can't
Yeah.
see them. And that's why there's some really, that's why I like watching like some kind of movies, like different things that kind of show that, like even Interstellar, just kind of almost when he goes into that place where I don't even know what it is, but he's like floating through this place where he can.
Oh, the Tesseract.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, he's in the Tesseract. Yep. He
Okay.
goes.
Yeah,
He
I
passes.
like that word.
That's a cool. Yeah, he passes over the event horizon. And then he enters the Tesseract. Yeah,
Crazy.
that's so, like, that's something. That's the movies trying to do the representation of the ability to travel. Through through that fourth dimension, through R4. You can move
Hmm.
from point to point because all points in time exist to him. There is no point in time that he does not have access to, at least in theory, and
Hmm.
then he can access those points, interact with them as he did with the lines using gravity, and then in a way you're partially existing through those. It's an interesting thought process. The movie throws like a little curveball because you're like, well, okay, but he's still three-dimensional, but he's interacting with the fourth, so that would lead to
Hmm.
technology, and like maybe that would be some sort of way that we're able to do this, so that but what's interesting to think is that that being would be able to do that without that technology, just like we can
Maybe
get up and walk.
Satoshi is like the guy from
I
Interstellar,
love that idea.
because
Yeah.
he was like almost like how he's trying to talk to his daughter, be like, "Hey, I'm trying to tell you something so you can change the trajectory
Yeah.
of things." It's
Yeah.
like somebody like was like, "Oh, guess what? I'm a time traveler. I found the black hole and I'm going to go tell them how to fix this."
Yeah.
So it's like it's just so uh I mean, obviously it's insane, but it's just hilarious to think that maybe Satoshi is one of those dudes. Like
Not
he's
impossible.
like Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah. he's,
That's him.
he's just a
You
Hollywood
know,
actor from the future, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna show them this stuff.
we figured it out. That's who
Yeah.
Satoshi is.
Oh
He's the
man,
time traveling interstellar being.
I like it.
But the black hole is interesting. I love thinking about black holes because when you think of space and time all being one thing, when you think of a black hole, it's like, okay, nothing, there's no space or time that exists in a black hole, but maybe it's all of space and time. So it's just a really interesting
Yeah,
idea. I
black.
love that movie.
Yeah, black holes are they're very cool. Like what they are, what
Mhm.
they do.
And Bitcoin is like a black hole of
Bitcoin
finance.
is absolutely a financial black hole for sure, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
And that's why Satoshi is Matthew McConaughey, because he entered the black hole and Bitcoin is black hole.
yeah,
So,
I'm
right?
down with it. Let's ride that pony, 100%.
Yeah, well, it's just that's truth right now.
Mm-hmm. I'll have to listen.
I hope this video goes viral so people can think I'm a total crazy person and be like, Jesus Christ, Bitcoin is the black hole in Interstellar. That's what it is.
I'm okay with it. That was one of the
We're
nodes,
see who else would understand besides a Bitcoiner
right?
my crazy thoughts.
Nobody.
So the other thing that's really great that you like to talk about that I do too is the whole connection between Bitcoin and quantum physics, because when we talk about energy cannot be created or destroyed,
Yeah,
Bitcoin has rules without rulers, and we make connections to physics, which is really fun to do.
yeah.
Because that's like, okay, yes, it is real because it follows rules of reality that we are living in. So what are your thoughts on that?
I like to pair it like what Sailor says. It's thermodynamically sound, right? It requires energy in and requires energy out. It's a system. When you look at fiat, how they create money, they're creating it out of nowhere, right? They're violating the fundamental laws of thermodynamics. They're creating, because money is energy, right? In
Mhm.
this, at least in this conversation, we could say that money is energy. So what is fiat doing? They're creating energy out of nowhere, and that's you can't do that. So it destroys
Yeah.
the world. Bitcoin doesn't do that. It follows the laws of physics. So you cannot create another Bitcoin without inputting the sufficient amount of energy, and then that Bitcoin has a physical representation in the world, whether you buy a Ferrari with it or a house or whatever. And that's you're now changing that energy into matter. So it's following those rules. It's completely following those rules.
And I think I knew this, but just hearing you say it like that is really a great way for people to visualize that when you think of Bitcoin being 21 million total coins,
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin is the entire supply of Bitcoin is the entire amount of all labor
Yeah.
forever
Yes. Yes.
into 21 million coins.
Yes.
So every amount of work hours that not only humans, but AI and robotics are going to ever work forever,
Yeah.
all amount of work is forever in these 21 million. That is, the value is
It's
infinite.
infinite. Yes. It's infinite as long as we continue to put that energy into it, right? The cap to the
Yeah.
work that it can do when you change it is equal to the energy we put in, right? It's a literal equal. It's a black hole, right? The Schwarzschild radius was the event horizon. That was Satoshi's Genesis block. That's okay. We've gone past the event horizon now. We are now
Yes.
falling into the black hole, and everybody that's putting energy in. And the more energy that you put in, and this is where maybe you can say it's a white hole too, because
Oh, I like that.
yeah, you can take energy out. So unlike a black hole, you can take energy out of Bitcoin because you're going to take your sats and you're going to
Into the new world.
yeah, 100%,
That's amazing.
100%. And now
We're
you can, when you're done with your house or your Ferrari and you sell it for Bitcoin, you're now reconverting that asset, that work, that physical object, you're reconverting it back into energy, back into potential energy. So you're moving the network from potential energy to real world energy, back to potential energy over and over and over and over again. And that's a fun way to think of what's in your wallet too, right? What's in your signing device, your coins. Your coins are the representation of the potential energy that they're able to put out into the physical world.
the total percentage of all work in the world at that current time.
Yeah.
It's like you have a percentage, whatever percentage of Bitcoin you own, whatever amount of the total coins that ever will be.
Yeah.
When you own Bitcoin, you own a percentage of all work that will ever exist.
That's
But
right.
for now, it's just in this timeline
That's right. And
from
now,
this moment. Yeah, but
yeah,
it'll keep growing.
that's why certain Bitcoin thresholds are so important, right? Because you can better map physical work towards those thresholds. So, for example, like right now, everybody's talking, be a whole coiner, but you whole coiner, right? Why? Because if you average the price at 100,000, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. And now that's a lot of potential work when you think about the 100 million sats, right? And all the base UTXOs, how many times you can chop that up, million chunks, 100,000 chunks, 10,000 chunks, whatever the chunks you need to be, moving it to Lightning, doing whatever you need to do. The potentiality within a single coin is extremely high for now and the foreseeable future. Now, fast forward 50 years, right? Half a coin will be that same potential value. It's like when you lift a rock up high with a pulley, right? And at first, it doesn't do a lot of work. So you can have a small pulley and it's a small rock. But over time, when the rock gets bigger, right, your potential work gets bigger, you need a bigger and bigger pulley. But as long as you increase that pulley at the same base rate that you're increasing your weight, right, as long as there's an equilibrium there, you'll be able to lift that rock with the same amount of work. And that's the
That's
same thing
amazing.
Bitcoin does. It's going to provide you the same amount of work with less sats over time. It's an
Yeah,
incredible
that's
thing.
super incredible.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely mind blowing when you start getting into that, the conversion of energy to
Yeah, and the
matter.
reason it is because when people for people that don't understand this yet that might be watching, the reason we're saying it's the total amount of all work that ever will be done by human or machine, it's because when you go to work, you spend your time at work, you're putting your energy into that work, and you're saving it in something like currency right now that's fiat. So when you get an exchange of your value is your time that you spend, your energy that you spent. So that all that energy goes into a conversion for fiat, and now we're taking that fiat and we're putting it into Bitcoin, which is storing that forever,
Yeah.
forever work, like future work. Like you're literally buying a piece of work that's going to be done
Yes.
like 1,000 years from now.
Yes.
Imagine the kind of, I don't know. That's crazy.
It's
Like
hard
I
to,
love it.
yeah, it's hard to wrap your head around. I mean, imagine if you're capable of sending, holding on to, let's say, one Bitcoin, right? And you hold on to that for 5 or 6 generations. Now project out, okay? Because people think like, oh, the value. No, forget the value. Project out the potential work that's going to be happening on a global scale in 5 generations with robotics, with AI, with automation, with the potential colony on Mars, right? The workload is going to be an order of magnitude higher. And what that Bitcoin will do then will be orders of magnitude higher.
Okay, wait. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, give me a second.
Yeah.
Okay. So not only, because we all talk about hash rate.
Yep.
Okay, so not only is it going to be all of the work forever that will be done by man or machine, but so I just
Yeah,
want to
I
keep
know where you're going.
recapping that.
Bring it on. I know
You
it.
know where
Yeah,
I'm
I
going.
know. Yeah. I love it. Keep it coming. Keep it coming.
Okay, so I mean, the hash rate is going to be increasing exponentially because we're going to need so much more computing power to power Bitcoin, and people are going to be still wanting to mine it because of its value. So they're going to be incentivized to keep mining it and doing it harder and faster and more. So it's not just all the work going into everything that's created in the world and every job that's ever going to be done, but it's all of the power grid that's going to be protecting the network so no one steals from it.
Yeah.
It's going to be like, I think the Bitcoin hash rate is going to dwarf all production
It
or
will.
something
It
in the
will.
future.
It will, because again, it leverages efficiency, right? It leverages efficiency, right?
Yeah.
Imagine a I don't know, like a 20 nanometer ASIC chip in your computer monitor, in every light bulb, in every car, in your watch, right? Imagine, and even smaller, maybe like let's get even like sub nanometer, right? These tiny little ASIC chips that are going to be, sub nanometer in size, that are going to use hundredths of a watt, right? Nothing. And are going to hash at rates that, put, one of those little chips will be like an S9 today. And it's going to hash at like, I don't know, 0.05 watts. And there's going to be trillions of them across literally the solar system. No, forget it. The amount of work that's going into that is going to be unbelievable. Think about it like this too. Think about like when you're thinking about work. Let's put the price tag back on it again. For the last couple of years now, in the last 2 epochs, the average block reward price is around $300,000, right? In the year 2140, the block reward is 1 Satoshi. So let's project that out. 1 Satoshi could have a potential value of $300,000. That puts 1 Bitcoin at $30 trillion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's insane. Because yeah, every halving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Has gone up in value by how much, and it'll just keep increasing.
Yeah, and that's considered, that's if it stays linear, right? That's linear.
Right.
It may not be linear. The reward may also scale at either a power law or an S curve. God forbid it's an S curve, because now 1 sat, forget 300,000. Yeah, it starts out very slow, and then it goes near vertical, and then it starts to peak.
Yeah,
then it starts
linear is like the idea where humans can comprehend.
Yeah,
and exponential growth or S curves are something that you can't really.
No, we can't comprehend them. It's
hard to calculate. Yeah,
yeah. It's the I don't know if you ever like played the game. Double. I'll give you $1 every day. I'll double it. How much you have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Same thing with filling a stadium. If I tried to fill a stadium with 1 drop and then I doubled it to 2 drops and then doubled it to 4 drops and doubled it to 8 drops, like how long would it fill the stadium? People are like, oh, forever. It's like 15 days, because like once you reach half of the stadium, the next step is a full stadium. So it's going slow. That's the whole joke of, slowly then suddenly, because it's slow. Then you're halfway there. We're doubling it. Now you're all the way there. In an instant, you're all the way there.
In an instant.
Yeah.
And that's what I think when Jeff Booth talks about that too with the paper, but a water droplet is a great idea, because you can picture doubling water in a stadium more than you can picture folding paper, because you can't fold it more than a few times without not being able to fold it. So it's a better example, because you don't have to theoretically think how many times you could fold a paper to reach the moon. But this is actually something, it's a better way to kind of visualize that.
There might be even some YouTube videos that show it, like some computer animations that show how quickly the stadium fills. And it's incredible. Like, the first like week goes by, right? And it's still just a puddle. You're like, a week later, it's a puddle. You're like, what are you talking about? This will never fill up. And then you come back, 4 or 5 days later, and, the first layer of chairs are filled. And you're like, oh, it's kind of getting filled. And then in 2 days, it's halfway. And then you blink your eyes and it's full. It's like,
same thing with the dollar. When you think about, they're adding money to the national debt, you think, oh, first it started slow. They were adding little bits, and then they're doubling that and doubling that, and it's like it keeps, and it's like, that's why, because the amount of work that you're putting in is getting devalued. That's so why would anybody want to work in the future?
No, you're not going to.
If you're not increasing your the time you spend working, what is the point of working in the future? Like, there's going to be so much work. That's why when people freak out about AI and robotics, I'm like, they're going to be doing so much work for nothing, and you're going to be going to work for like half and half and half the amount of value that you could buy things in the world for. It almost is like, wow, this is a joke. Like, we're going to need to find ways where people don't have to work and just enjoy their life, because who is going to be able or want to, unless it's just fun for you to go do it. You know what I mean? That's the only time.
I think that will be, I think we're going to see a lot of that. I think we'll see a lot of people exploring creativity and maybe branching out into the arts more. Which I think is a good thing. I think that humanity's creativity has been hindered by fiat. I posted something the other day. It was my grandmother's furniture, and I said, fiat robs beauty. And look at the furniture that they used to make, right? This beautiful ancient hand carved things, right? We don't do that today. We could never fathom that, because it needs.
I've got my grandmother's couch right over here.
Yeah. It needs to be, and I'm sure it's gorgeous. I'm sure it's beautiful. But today it needs to be done quick, fast, get it out the door for the cheapest price possible. I don't care how long it lasts, because everything is falling apart, right? And maybe in that type of post-scarcity world, people will start building handcrafted couches again. Because, like, that, yeah, you can go to the 3D printer and get yourself a couch tomorrow, but you might want the handmade one.
And then knowing that there's Bitcoiners out there who are like, okay, we have all this money because we're rich now, or whoever has been in Bitcoin for many years, but then they see that somebody in their community is building a handmade couch that's beautifully crafted, and they think, you know what, you took a lot of time to make this. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Here's some Satoshis for that couch. And those people are going to be thankful because they're like, thank you. I spent not only my time creating this, putting my energy out there into the world. You're going to buy it for Bitcoin that I know will be more valuable exponentially, and it's helping my family.
Right. A good reminder of that is the suit versus gold. Like a 1 ounce of gold buys you about a good suit, right? 100 years ago, 1 ounce of gold bought you a good suit. That's because the good suit carries a type of value, right? It's handcrafted. There's a tailor that's working on it. It's measured to fit you. It's not one size fits all. There is a certain amount of work and value that has gone into that has been preserved, and that's why it still costs about an ounce of gold. Now, why it hasn't gone down in value is, again, because gold is inflationary at 2% a year. If gold were capped, then even the good suit would tend to go down. Not as much. It wouldn't go down like the cheap suit from Sears, but it would maybe be an eighth of an ounce of gold or something like that. But there is value in this work. There is value in handmade things that are heart and soul has been put into them. We were talking about the pyramids earlier. I mean, imagine you go back in time, whether or not you want to say they did or didn't build them is besides the point for this part of the conversation, because when you have nothing else to do, right? When you're not struggling to pay rent, struggling to buy food, credit card debts are to the moon, your kid's sick, you can't afford the medicine. When you're not dealing with those things and you have the entire day, maybe you can figure out how to move a 2-ton block, because that's all you need to worry about. Maybe you can carve a beautiful vase. Maybe everybody is capable of that type of stuff. And maybe we can put beauty like the pyramids back into this world because we're not so concerned with just paying our rent and staying alive. And, oh my God, am I going to be able to put heat? Okay, can I cook food tonight? Nope, it's ramen noodles. Sorry, kids, I'm going to have to wait until next week when I get paid again. I mean, the stress that Fiat is putting on people is robbing the entire world of the creativity of the human mind.
Yes, 100%. It's robbing the people of creativity. It's also, robbing people of their lives. People die for wars.
Yeah.
It's like all these terrible things that Fiat contributes to just so that people could enrich themselves. So this is that parallel system that, wow, we've had some really mind-blowing moments here. So it's like, I feel like that's what I love talking about Bitcoin with Bitcoiners.
Yeah.
Because things that you think you can share with people that might come across this podcast in an interesting way and listen to you talk about just whatever thoughts you have about it, and you can explain things to people in a way that I can't. And I mean, I'm so excited. I feel like every time I talk to somebody, I'm like, I can't wait to share this one.
Different.
And I feel like we just have so many great ideas about the future, and we're so hopeful about it.
Yeah. Different voices create a symphony. So that's the way I think about that.
This is amazing. Yeah, I would love that idea of the thinking, like, remember to think about Bitcoin like an exponentially growing technology protocol like the internet, but think of it in a way where, that video, if we could find that video and link it below too for the stadium with the water.
Yeah.
It's a really great way to think about how things double and double. And it's not a linear growth thing, it's an exponentially growing thing. So,
which is scary too. It's gonna be,
yeah. I mean, it's scary. Yeah, it's kind of like exciting, nervous, but scary, but also really fun to watch this play out. Like, I just checked the Bitcoin price now as we were talking. I was like, oh, let me just see. I haven't looked at it in a while. It's over 91 today. So I'm like, ooh, is this decoupling still
Look at
going?
that.
Like,
Yeah.
what's going on with the stock market today? I want to know. But it's like just funny to see these designer, like what will happen to the designer brands that now China is sort of exposing their greed, so
maybe Coach will start making them by hand again. If Coach wants to justify that price tag, you need to put the work in. Proof of work.
Right.
Proof of work.
Yes. I think it's super fun. It's fun to see this. It's fun to see things play out. I hope more people are having fun once they realize that there is an escape hatch, and once they can actually see hope for the future and not be um, scared and complaining and arguing with each other over about what's going on, because whatever is happening is going to happen anyway. Just kind of enjoy the show
Yeah,
and escape with Bitcoin.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Tickets to
So I'm
escape.
going to be. What'd you say?
Tickets to escape the Matrix are priced in Bitcoin.
Yes, amazing. God, I love thinking about it as like all of the work and all the hash rate ever at
Yeah.
the current time that you're in it. But that's just such a cool thought. But I'm going to be linking your X page down below
Okay.
so people could follow you.
Awesome.
And I hope more people get on X if they come across this video and they aren't on X yet. That's where you go and find out more about truth and Bitcoin and cool people like SatsScholar here. So thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you. This was a blast. I had a ton of fun. I really appreciate you giving me a stage to speak my voice. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I do love the music, even though you didn't know you were playing
I
it at the
had
very
no idea
beginning.
it was.
It was super cool. I was like
Uh,
just in there. You're probably trying to talk to me, and I'm just like, oh, I'm meditating, waiting for waiting for you to get on.
oh boy.
That was great though. I
Cool.
loved it. And
Awesome.
thank you so much. It was nice getting to know you better. And we're
Definitely.
totally just like, same brain here. Like we're like on the same network,
Yeah.
or and I love that. I love that we can find friends. This is awesome.
Yeah.
It's like are you going to Vegas by any chance?
No, that's not this
Dang
year.
it.
Maybe in the next year or
Fine.
two. I'll be going.
Okay.
It's just I have a lot of work to do.
You don't have to worry about it. Yes,
Yeah.
I almost didn't go myself. You don't have to explain, but one day it'd be nice. This is my first conference I'm going to in Vegas, and I'm really excited. So I
That's
just
awesome.
thought if I just wanted to make sure I asked, because it'd be nice to for more people to know if you're going to be there too. But
Yeah, unfortunately,
definitely
no.
in the future it'd be great.
I have a couple of friends who are going. I think
Mhm.
I think one of them is speaking there too. So I'll be there in
Okay.
spirit. I'll say that.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Sounds good. I'll try to do some kind of live stream. That'd be
that'd
fun.
be awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely do that. 100%.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me again, and I can't wait to post this video.
Thank you, Stacy. Have a good day.
Have a great day.
Bye.